Hello, I am Cletus Afemikhe, and I will be presenting a report of my findings on the crisis of the Greek, and at the end of the day, I will present my recommendation. I am here today to present a report of my research on the Greek debt crisis. I will look at the causes of the crisis and later on recommend strategies for growth. The crisis started around late in 2009, 8 years after it joins the Eurozone. The Eurozone is a monetary union of 90 of the 28 European Union member states that have agreed to use the same currency, which is the euro, as their legal tender. And Greece was caught up in deep debt crisis in 2009. And that crisis is commonly referred to as the Greek debt crisis or the Greek recession. So what is the crisis all about? We are talking about the crisis. What is it all about? It is about Greece issuing bonds, issuing treasury bills, taking loans from lenders, and as time went on, these debts becomes due, and they were unable to pay the principal and the interest as they comes due, and the inability for them to pay sent a trigger into the stock market, and lenders refuses to lend Greece anymore. Coupled with the 2008 recession, lenders have to apply stringent rules before they lend because nobody wants to be out of business. Nobody wants to lose his investment, and this is what happened. Because Greece were continually running a deficit budget of more than 3%. Because before you join the Eurozone, there is a law that before you can join, you must meet this condition, which is your debt to GDP ratio must not be above 60%. And your deficit budget must not be above 3%. But in all these criteria, Greece were not meeting up. They have to cook up their record so that they could join the Eurozone. Because at the Eurozone, they have a high credibility because people will look at them that they will not meet up with the criteria for joining. And they will see free monies because they could lend. Investors could lend to them, lenders could lend to them at a very cheaper rate, and they were continue lending until they get traps. And there was a great crisis. There was the banks were lack of liquidity. They could not give cash. People that comes to withdraw money, people that comes to do business could not withdraw money, and there was a great crisis. So this crisis led to the downfall economy of the Greece. It was a very big one. The IMF and European Central Bank has to come in to bail them because it was a very great crisis. If you leave them alone, it's going to cause a social problem. They have to give them a bailout. The first bailout was 110 billion euro. And that one could not even pay the debts, and they have to follow it up with another one, which is about 130 billion euro. And when, during the political campaigns, their prime minister still promised them that they will not implement any austerity measure. And when it comes to power, they discover there is no way that the country could survive without implementing austerity measure. And he has to go back to the IMF and the European Central Bank to get more money. And they have to give him this third bailout of about 96 billion euro. So what are the causes? What are the causes of the crisis? The number one causes of the crisis was they were borrowing to finance the budget. Continuous borrowing. We are borrowing and borrowing until we are now in serious problem. The Greek government were implementing social programs, and the political class during their campaign, they will promise jobs and to reduce unemployment. And to reduce this unemployment, they were not building industries. The only way they can do this was through massive employment into the civil service. And it was recorded when Andreas Papandreou came into power. In his first 8 years, he has employed about 220,000 employees into the civil service. There was a gargantuan civil service, and it takes a lot of money to pay these people. And even the political class, they were using it as a form of compensation to those that support them, to those that finance their elections. And they were giving them pay rise. Those people who support them, they give them pay rise, and it comes that this salary in the civil service was so high for the Greeks to bear. And the pension, people were retiring at the age of 60 and 62. And people began to retire. They continue to pay their pension. The bill for salaries and wages for the civil service and pensions were so high for the government to be able to accommodate. And there was the presence of informal economy within the system. The tourism, the hotels, the restaurants, all these were informal economy within the system, and they like to evade tax. They don't like to pay tax. And the amount of money that the government were losing to informal economy was about 30 billion between 2005 and 2008, which is about 25% of the country's GDP. And they also have a corrupt political structure. Their political class were corrupt. They are rent-seeking. They are waiving tariff for political associates. They were inefficient and ineffective structure in the economic system. And the rate of debt, the debt to GDP ratio was so high. It was over 60%. And the budget was so high, it was above 3%, and it was around 15%. We want to look at the recommendations that we have for growth so that the economy of the Greece can bounce back. Because number one, there are two different questions people are asking. Should the Greece quit the Eurozone, or should they continue to be members of the Eurozone? There are different advocates, there are different write-off for and against. Those who are for that they should quit, they are arguing that when Greece quit the Eurozone, we'll be able to have primary control over their policies. They can print more currency, devalue the currencies, and they'll be able to, the economy will be able to bounce back within a short time. But to me, I disagree with that, because I look at it, quitting the Eurozone is not the solution to this problem. When they quit the Eurozone, because most of the debt they are owing foreign currencies, and their productive rate, their production and their export is just about 25%. So how are they going to cope? Where will they get the forex? Because when they devalue, the value of the drachma will be about 50 times of the euro. So it's not going to help them out. So it is better they stay and reform their economy so that the economy can grow. So the number one place where they need to start the reform is in the public sector. They have to make the public sector to be more productive and efficient, to ensure that the public sector is productive, not that people will just come to work, sit down without doing anything at the end of the month waiting for salaries. That is not productivity. And all form of inefficiency, all form of bureaucracy that hinders productivity should be removed. And there should be downward review of salaries and wages of civil servants and pensioners. Because Greek exports were so expensive, and people could not buy their electronics, they could not buy the things that are being exported from Greece because of the cost of production. When you had the wages and salary of the workers, when you had the cost of production, at the time you arrive at price, you discover that their prices are not competitive compared to products from Germany, from Spain and Italy. Number one, they have to review downward the salaries of these workers. And they have to expand the tax base of the country. Everyone should pay tax. Let there be no tax evasion. Let the people, both those who are in the informal economy, let them empower their federal inland revenue so that they be able to collect their taxes. And the government should reduce their expenditure and spending on socialist program. The spending on a socialist program should be drastically reduced. And I also suggest a pension reform. There's a pension reform that is being practiced in Nigeria, where the employer and the employee contribute certain percentage of their emolument. Employee contribute 10%, the employer contribute 8% of their emolument, and is being saved with the pensions company. And this will relieve the government from continuous pay pension, because as the employee is working, he is continuously saving his pension. So when they reform the pension scheme and they adopted this strategy, at the long run is going to help take away the burden of pay wages to the pensioner. Is going to remove it from the government, and there's going to be a lot of funds that will be used for other projects and will reduce their borrowing, and the economy will bounce back. And they also need to reform their laws to make it easy for investors to do business in Greece. Some of their laws are so awkward and so backward that it makes it very difficult for outsiders to come and do business in Greece. When they reform all these laws to make it easy for investors to come in, they will invest. And when they invest, they will employ people, there will be productive activities, everything will be going and things will be moving. So when they do all these things, we are very sure that the Greece economy will bounce back. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to how to resolve the crisis that is being experienced in the Greece economy. Thank you, and God bless.